Ever notice how some global markets are just quietly chugging along, almost under the radar? But they're so fundamental. Today, we're diving into one of those, the global wayside control market. Think of it like your quick download on a sector that's keeping our trains running smoothly and safely, and it's seeing some pretty exciting growth.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got this 2025 report. It's really dense, so we'll try to break down the key takeaways for you. We'll look at where this market is right now, where it's headed, and what's driving all of it.
Right. Now, wayside control systems, it might sound a bit technical at first. Basically, they're the systems along the tracks, the wayside, that keep tabs on and manage train movements. Think signaling, safety measures, really the backbone of how modern railways run.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we're not talking about a small market here either. For 2025, it's estimated at about 1,720 million US dollars globally.
Okay, that's a significant chunk of change, but I'm guessing it's not staying at that level. The report's hinting at some pretty big expansion, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. By 2033, it's projected to hit a whopping 279.16 million. So almost double in less than a decade. The CAGR, that's the compound annual growth rate, sits at a healthy 8.40% between 2025 and 2033. That consistent growth, well, it tells us something's pushing it forward.
And that's something. It's got to be tech, right? The report's highlighting those digital powerhouses, the Internet of Things, AI, and machine learning. I'm sensing they're not just buzzwords here. They're changing how railways function at their core.
Totally. Think about it. IoT sensors gathering real-time data from the tracks. AI crunching those numbers to predict, say, when maintenance is needed before things break down. And machine learning fine-tuning train schedules for peak efficiency. It's all about making rail safer, more dependable, more appealing overall.
All right, so big picture, a global market on the rise, fueled by some seriously cutting-edge tech. Now let's zoom in on where this growth is actually happening. The report gets into regional breakdowns, tells us who the heavy hitters are, and where we can expect the fastest growth rate.
Yeah, exactly. It reveals some pretty interesting regional dynamics and priorities.
All right, so first stop on our world tour, let's head to North America. Looks like they're in the lead for 2025, right?
They are. North America's got the biggest share, over 40% of the global wayside control market. Their market size in 2025 is estimated at 636.40 million.
Wow, that's a considerable lead. And what's the forecast for growth in North America? Still looking strong.
Yeah, their CAGR, it's projected at 6.9% from 2025 to 2033. By then, the market would be close to 1082.1 million US dollars, and the report breaks it down further into the US, Canada, and Mexico.
Yeah, the U.S. has got to be a big chunk of that North American market, right?
For sure. The US in 2025 is estimated at 502.12 million with a CGR of 6.7%. Then you've got Canada at 76.37 million, growing a bit faster at 7.7%, and Mexico at 57.91 million with a 7.4% CAGR.
So why is North America at the top, and why are they looking at such solid growth?
Well, there are a few things. Their rail networks are huge and already in place, so there's a big need to make them more efficient, safe, and automated. They've also been early adopters of those digital technologies we talked about, AI and IoT, in the rail sector. Think about those massive freight rail networks in the U.S. Efficiency is key there. Plus, they're always investing in infrastructure upgrades, and there are regulations pushing for safety, which all play a part.
Got it. Okay, let's hop across the pond to Europe. The report has them as the second largest market, right?
Yeah, Europe's got over 30%, with a market size of 498.80 million in 2025. They're on a good growth path, too.
What kind of annual growth are we looking at for them?
So their CAGR is projected at 7.4% from 2025 to 2033. It should reach 885.4 million US dollars. And like with North America, the report zooms in on some of the major economies within Europe.
Let's hear those numbers.
Sure. So in 2025, the UK is at about 83.80 million, with a pretty strong CAGR of 8.2%. Germany, a huge industrial player, sits at 98.76 million with a 7.6% CAGR. France is at 45.89 million, growing at 6.6%. Italy at 42.90 and 6.8%. Russia at 77.31 and 6.4%. And Spain at 40.90 with a 6.5% CAGR.
So it's a real mixed bag across the European economies, but what's pushing them to invest in wayside control?
It seems like Europe's really focused on boosting their safety standards. They're also into automation to get more efficiency, and they want to expand remote monitoring across their rail systems. There's a big push for sustainable transport too, and these modern wayside control systems help optimize energy use and cut down on delays. Plus, they're big on using integrated digital platforms to manage their railways.
Makes sense. Okay, now let's shift gears to a region known for its rapid development, Asia Pacific, or APAC. I'm getting the sense from the report that there's some seriously dynamic growth happening there.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, APAC holds about 23% of the global market in 2025, with a size of 412.80 million. But they're expected to see the fastest growth worldwide.
Wow, that's a key takeaway. What kind of PGR are we talking about?
APAC's projected to grow at a crazy 11.2% from 2025 to 2033, reaching 952.4 million. The growth rates in some of their major economies are eye-popping.
Okay, I got to hear those numbers.
So China, in 2025, they're at 173.38 million, expected to grow at 10.7%. India is at 41.28 million, but with a massive 13.1% TKGR. Japan's at 56.97 million with 9.7% growth. South Korea's at 49.54 million and 10.3%. And Southeast Asia as a whole, 27.24 million and a whooping 12.0% CGR.
Those are some huge numbers, especially for India and Southeast Asia. What's behind this incredible growth in APAC?
A few things are happening at once. Cities are growing super fast, which means they need public transport that's efficient and can handle a lot of people. Rail is a big part of that solution. Governments are investing heavily in smart city projects, including upgrading their railways with these high-tech control systems. And they're really going for AI and IoT to boost safety and cut costs. Of course, there's just more passenger and freight traffic, which demands more sophisticated rail management. Think about the dedicated freight corridors they're building in India. Those need cutting-edge control systems.
So even though North America and Europe are bigger right now, it sounds like APAC is the one to watch in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Their projected growth is way faster than those more established markets.
All right, let's look at some of the other regions. Smaller, but still important. The report covers South America too, right?
Right. South America's got over 5% of the global market. Their market size in 2025 is 65.36 million, and it's projected to grow at a solid 9.1% CAGR to reach 131.2 million by 2033.
Any particular countries driving that growth in South America?
Yeah, the report specifically mentions Brazil. Their market in 2025 is 27.97 million, with a CGR of 9.7%, and Argentina is at 10.98 million with a 10.0% CAGR.
What's driving their growth?
It's a lot like other regions. They want safer and more efficient rail networks. They're also looking to cut costs, and there's more investment in infrastructure with a growing focus on sustainable transport.
Okay, moving a bit east, the Middle East is in the report as well.
Yeah, the Middle East has about 2% of the global market. It's at 68.80 million in 2025 and expected to grow at a strong 9.7% CAGR, hitting 144.3 million by 2033.
Which countries are the most active in the Middle East?
The report highlights Saudi Arabia. They're at 24.22 million in 2025 with a 10.0% CAGR, and the UAE is at 14.17 million with a 10.2% CAGR. These high growth rates, they often reflect new infrastructure projects that are coming online.
What's pushing this growth in the Middle East?
Well, safety and efficiency in rail transport are big drivers. They're expanding and modernizing their rail networks, and with rapid urbanization, they need better traffic management. Smart city tech is also playing a bigger role.
Makes sense. Finally, let's look at Africa. They currently have the smallest share, right?
Yeah, Africa's got around 1% of the global market at 37.84 million in 2025. They're projected to grow at a CAGR of 8.7%, reaching 73.8 million by 2033.
Any specific countries leading the way in Africa?
The report mentions South Africa. They're at 13.32 million in 2025 with a 9.6% CAGR, and Nigeria is at 3.03 million with an 8.9% CAGR. So the numbers are smaller, but there's definitely potential as their rail infrastructure develops.
What's fueling that potential in Africa?
Well, rail transport itself is growing, both for passengers and freight. They also need to modernize their existing rail systems, which are often outdated. Real-time data is becoming more important for safety and efficiency. Plus, there are government programs to expand and upgrade rail networks across the continent.
So we've got a real global picture here. North America's in the lead, but APAC's the one to watch. It's fascinating how different regions have different needs and priorities and how that shapes this market. Now, the report also breaks down the different parts of the Wayside Control market itself. It looks at the types of components and their specific applications, giving us a more detailed view.
Yeah, it segments the market by the components used and how they're applied.
Okay, let's start with components. What are the main categories?
Well, the report talks about hardware, software, and services as the main components. And it says software is going to be the dominant segment overall.
Software taking the lead, that seems to be the trend everywhere as things go digital. What's driving that in Wayside Control specifically?
It's the need for things to run smoother and safer. People want better train scheduling too. And all those complex algorithms that optimize traffic flow on busy rail networks, that's where software comes in. Plus, with IoT and AI advancing, we need more powerful software to manage and analyze all that data. Think about predictive maintenance, where software looks at sensor data to predict when a piece of equipment might fail. That lets them fix things before they break and keeps things running smoothly.
Interesting. And what about hardware? The report mentioned that it was the fastest growing segment, which is interesting given software's overall dominance.
Yeah, that's right. So software is the biggest, but hardware is growing the fastest.
Hmm.
That's because as we need more safety, efficiency, and automation, we need the physical stuff to support it. With IoT and AI integration, you need new and better hardware, more sensors, advanced communication systems, powerful processing units. And as rail networks get bigger, you just need more wayside equipment in general.
So it's like a two-way street. The fancy software needs the hardware to collect data and make things happen, and as networks grow, you need more of both. All right, let's move on to how these systems are actually being used. What are the key applications here?
The report focuses on two main ones: automatic train control, or ATC, and centralized traffic control, or CTC.
And it looks like ATC has the biggest market share right now. Why is that?
It all comes down to safety and efficiency. ATC systems are like a safety net. They constantly check train speeds and signals, and if there's a potential problem, they step in automatically. That helps prevent accidents caused by human error and makes rail travel more reliable. And with all the new tech being developed for transportation, ATC is in a strong position. Think of it like an autopilot for trains, but focused on safety.
And CTC is also a big player and growing fast, according to the report.
Yep, centralized traffic control is expanding quickly. That's because more and more rail networks are using centralized systems to manage their signals and track switches. CTC makes things more efficient, safer because you have a complete view of everything, and it helps manage traffic flow better overall. The push for modernizing infrastructure and building smart cities is also fueling CTC growth. It's like air traffic control, but for trains.
So ATC is all about making sure each train moves safely, while CTC is about managing the whole network efficiently. Sounds like both are essential for modern railways. Now, beyond the numbers, the report also talks about the bigger forces that are either pushing or holding back this market.
Yeah, it talks about market drivers and restraints.
Let's start with the good stuff. What's driving this growth?
The report highlights a few key drivers. First, there's a growing global need for public transport that's efficient and reliable. Cities are getting bigger, and we need sustainable ways to get around. Rail is a big part of that solution. Second, the rail industry itself is becoming more focused on sustainability. Rail is already greener than driving or flying, and these new control systems can make it even more environmentally friendly. And finally, there's more investment in public transport infrastructure worldwide, and that often includes upgrading signaling and control systems as part of modernization.
Those all sound like pretty big trends that'll keep things moving forward. Now, what about challenges? What could hold back this market?
Well, the report mentions harsh environments as a potential problem. Installing and maintaining wayside equipment can be tough and expensive in places with extreme weather or rough terrain. Another big factor is the high initial cost. It takes a lot of money to implement these advanced systems, which can be a problem for smaller rail companies or in developing economies where money is tight.
So it's about finding a balance, weighing the long-term benefits, efficiency, safety, sustainability against the upfront costs and the challenges of different environments. Now, to get a better understanding of who's who in this market, the report also gives us a look at the competitive landscape, right?
Yeah, it points out that the global wayside control market is pretty competitive, with a mix of big global companies and smaller, more specialized regional players.
Okay, so who are the big names? Who's dominating this market?
The report names some key global players like Alstom Bombardier, Hitachi, Siemens, Thales, and ABB. They're strong because they offer a wide range of railway tech products. They have established distribution networks all over the world, and they're constantly innovating and developing new things.
So it sounds like the big players in railway tech are also leading the way in wayside control. The report also includes a recent development, a specific piece of news that shows how active this market is and its potential.
Right. It mentions that in January 2025, Rail Vision Ltd. signed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with Sujin Ventures. They're a supplier to Indian Railways. The goal is to potentially supply Rail Vision safety systems for thousands of locomotives in India.
That's huge, especially when you consider how big the Indian railway network is. The report says they have something like 15,000 locomotives. That's a massive market.
Exactly. It shows there's a lot of opportunity in places like India. There's a real push to modernize existing rail infrastructure and make it safer, and the demand for these advanced systems is definitely there.
So to sum it all up, we've really gone deep into the global wayside control market. It's big in 2025, and it's only getting bigger. Digital technologies like IoT and AI are driving a lot of this growth.
We've also seen how this growth is playing out differently around the world. North America's on top right now, but Asia Pacific is set to grow the fastest in the coming years.
We broke down the market by its components. Software is king and its main applications, ATC and the rapidly growing CTC. We talked about the driving forces: demand for efficient and sustainable transport, increasing infrastructure investment, and the potential roadblocks, costs, and environmental challenges.
And we looked at the competitive landscape,
Right.
with major players leading the charge, and a recent development in India that shows just how dynamic this market is.
It really shows how technology is changing even the oldest forms of transport, like railways. As this market keeps growing, it makes you think, what other essential systems that we rely on are ready for a tech makeover? And what will that mean for our societies as those systems become smarter and more connected? Something to think about for sure.